Okie dokie. Hello, everybody. First, I guess, official video that I'm recording. We'll see how it turns out. Let me know. Again, audio stuff, build stuff, all of that. We'll, go about that as it comes about. But today, I want to talk about Rarity. You know her, you love her. Famed for her fashionista skills and how that applies to the main six. I will pull up really quick a couple of pictures of Rarity, hope that nothing awful shows up on Google. Okay, that is pretty alright. So I will show Chrome and not scroll. You can see here, hopefully, like, where the inspiration is coming in, where, I've taken things and modified them and made them into a Warframe fashion frame. I'll go through and kind of explain my decisions for each, the Warframe, each of the weapons, each of the fashion choices, and we'll start with going through all of that, going through all of the fashion, and then we will go, and then we'll shift into focusing on the builds, and then we'll end with a kind of a test. So, Citrine, obvious choice. Rarity's whole thing is finding gems. That's what her cutie mark is about. That's what her whole thing is about, is finding gems. So Rarity was an obvious choice for me. I use the Cowlight helm because it has the big floating gem in the middle of the head, but the normal helm is just fine too, I feel. It kind of just depends on preference. I have not, extensively screwed around with the deluxe or Tenogen skins, but I mean, you can see them here if you feel like they're solid for you, and you want to use this color scheme, go right ahead. Obviously, again, when it comes to the skin, the noble animation seemed obvious because Rarity is a very, kind of tries to be up class kind of a girl, and so noble just felt right. When it comes to, well, here, first I will show you, attachments are just copy over from Warframe colors, and I will show you the colors here. We have Kavya up here. On our secondary, we have Daybreak right here. We have up here, top left, Tertiary on Corpus. And then for this purple, we're running Eminence right here. And then Kavya again for first energy color, / emissive, and then just straight classic saturated right in the middle. Also, if you want like a picture to look at, for all of this, I have uploaded a thing to my DeviantArt, and I have an article about this on my Substack if you'd prefer this in written form. The builds in my Substack are slightly different because it's been a while since I wrote that article, and so the builds are slightly different, and I'll talk about that when we get to builds. But if you want something in written form, or if you want a still picture, I will link those below. Here, though, attachments, we're primarily using the Namor, because it looks like crystals. There are other things you can kind of play around with, I feel. None explicitly come to mind, though. I just know that there are other crystally armor pieces that you can dig around. No auxiliary, obviously, although, if you want a mustache, get a mustache. Spinneret ephemera, because I feel like it really kind of brings home this image of like Rarity whenever she's like working in her workshop, and then she comes out and she's covered in fabric and covered in yarn and covered in twine and covered in string and silk and, just exhausted from having to work all day on that. And so I felt like that was a really fun addition that kind of helps, not only does it give her an ephemera in the first place, but it kind of helps round out the look, I think. And then, of course, the Frost Heirloom Signa. I know this is probably the most divisive part of this build. Again, it's just here to look like a unicorn horn and look like crystals. You can see the Y offset here, yada yada yada, right? So, Syandana, we have the Hecate, the Prisma Hecate. I'll go into these colors really quick. Deca Heirloom down here. If you don't have Deca Heirloom, A good replacement is you could kind of play around with these Eminence colors a little, or you could go into Hallows Eve and use this. I mean, you can see the difference in the colors there, but I have the Deca Heirloom one. Secondary, same Daybreak. Tertiary, same Corpus. Accents, same Eminence, and I can tell you that the energies are the same as earlier. So why Prisma Hecate? Well, if you remember, there is an episode prominently where Rarity goes and makes this unique shimmery fabric and it gets stolen by another designer who plagiarizes it. And the Hecate, the Prisma, is literally filaments of Prisma crystals. And so, not only did I not really want anything big and bulky, that would stand out too much, so this is very nice, small, elegant little touch. It also fits, I feel like, right at home, with Rarity being, a gem person who's making unique fabrics with, and experimenting in that way. So, the Bow Prime. Why did I pick the Bow Prime? Well, you may notice up here that it's an elegant fury, or so it's described. And I really wanted to, obviously primes were like a gimme. Of course Rarity is going to use primes. If Citrine Prime existed, I would use Citrine Prime. But I wanted to look for weapons that specifically were called elegant by the game. Because the kind of intent of this build is if Rarity were in Warframe as a Warframe. And, or I guess you could say maybe like as an operator or drifter or whatever. And I kind of felt like, she would be gearing towards what people stylistically consider to be elegant. The Bow Prime is considered elegant. When it comes to its appearance, it's just straight copy Warframe colors. I have the Daemon Prime on here. That's a little excessive, but I thought it was neat, and I don't usually use Sugatras, so I liked it. The Aksomati, again, elegant, precisely refined. So, I feel like she would use the Aksomati here. We're just using that same Eminence over the bright blue because I thought that it looked better. Use a skin if you want. I don't, because if the weapon is called elegant, I don't see why we would use a skin to change it. However, if you believe that Rarity wouldn't use guns with a kind of Devil May Cry Virgil attitude, that they're too brash, too loud, too noisy, my recommended alternative is the Ballistica Prime. It's described as a beauty, luxuriously gilded, and, I think that it's a really fun weapon. Again, copy Warframe colors. You may want to use a skin on this one, just because the normal Ballistica Prime is so bulky. That only makes it worse, though, so don't use that one. Teasing, of course. Oops, that's not how you spell Aksomati. But I will use the Aksomati. The Astilla Prime. I know that it says glass slugs, but I feel like it's kind of like crystals, just a little bit. Again, if you are feeling like a no guns thing, then you can hook up with the Prisma lens. I personally just don't like the Prisma lens, but it's Prisma. It uses Prisma crystals. It's a bow. I feel like that's, slightly more elegant, even if it's an exploding bow. If you want to go even less gun than that, the Paris Prime is always an option. Paris Prime does pretty okay damage. You'll have pretty okay time using it. Other alternatives, if you don't like the Astilla, the Soma, as the counterpart, the primary weapon counterpart to the Aksomati, I have to imagine that the Soma is considered elegant also? But, what do I know? It certainly doesn't mention it in the codex, but... Or, if none of those are piquing your interest, right, I don't have it. You could go with any of the other Prisma weapons, specifically, I don't have the Prisma Gorgon, but I feel like the Prisma Gorgon might be a little interesting. You have this kind of lens where the Gorgon is named after a group of, women in ancient Greek history that I think Rarity might sympathize with, or, you know, just have opinions about in a general way, and so she might use the Prismal Gorgon. However, that's appearance stuff. For companions, I'm running a Panzer. I have this just all set to white colors, literally star white on accents, thorn pink, just to, I mean, you can barely tell. And then the energy I have is a bright pink for no reason in particular. But this is all intended to kind of make it look more like opal. If you want, you could just go full Kavat and have your Kavat look like opal and just use a Kavat. That's an option to go. I use the Panzer because I want the viral stacks. You could also, if you wanted to really play up the spike fantasy of, you know, or I guess the spike shipping, I mean, then I have a spike build coming later. It'll be with whenever I cover Twilight. And so now we'll move on to the builds. So, I'm going to talk about the Parazond real quick, and I'm going to change its colors real quick also. These are, I just want to bring them up because they're here, and so they will affect the build if I, you know, get a mercy kill on someone. Just wanted to bring it up, make sure that, you know, people were aware of that. For the Bow Prime, even though I don't have melee arcane adapter, we're running your generic melee influence setup. Good base damage, good base speed, some nice range, without having to, like, overly forma the Bow Prime. Running viral, and then electricity, galvanized steel for crit chance and crit damage, and then elementalist for status damage and more status chance. This is pretty typical. If you watched my introduction video, you will know that I am staunchly not great about making meta builds, so I'm sure that there are things that can be done here to make this better. Hell if I know, though, so I guess if you have opinions about it, let me know in the comments. We'll switch over to the Aksomati now. So here's the thing about the Aksomati and the Astilla. I really want all of my weapons to have a purpose. And so when I was setting these up, I kept running into this problem where I would use the Astilla to clear out groups of enemies, and then maybe sometimes I would switch to the Aksomati to kill a single target. But usually I just wasn't switching between weapons. So my solution to that is the Overguard Eater. We have secondary fortifier, we're running magnetic through use of Ice Storm, Jolt, and Magnetic Might, and we're, you know, your general crit mods. Of course, this could be upgraded to Prime Target Cracker, Hornet Strike for damage. I don't think... Yeah, okay. You could, if you wanted to be a cool guy, you could run Pistol Acuity. Since I don't have this capped out, I'll do this so you can see what the capped out version would be. 350% damage, 350% crit chance. That's like, you know, if you want to be a cool guy who gets headshots, that's whatever. You can do that. Diffusion and Lethal Torrent, of course, for fire rate and multi-shot. Just, this thing just tears through Eximus Overguard. It keeps you alive because of Fortifier. It's just a fun weapon, I think. You might ask why we run Ice Storm instead of its counterpart, Frostbite or Deep Freeze. This is kind of a personal thing. I feel like without Ice Storm, we have this magazine of 80, and I feel like I never kill things with a magazine size of 8. I feel like I always end up right before killing something. It has like 1 or 2 ticks of health left, and it's not fun, frankly. With a magazine of 112, because we're running Ice Storm, we get the chance to actually kill things in a magazine. So that's why that's like that. And we move on, of course, to the Astilla. You may notice that I have a Riven here. I know not everybody has a Riven, especially one this goddamn good, but I'll get to that here in a minute. We're running a blast set, blast and electricity. This used to be cold corrosive or slash corrosive, I think, but I have changed my ways off of slash after getting yapped at a lot by it, or a lot about it. And so we are running blast electricity. It feels really good, better than a little better than the previous build. You'll notice the unique trait doesn't affect us because we aren't Gara, but wanted to mention it since it's there. And so, to kind of just go over things, we have crit coming from deceleration and primed ravage. We have our multi-shot coming from hell. We have base damage coming from point blank, blaze, chilling reload, which is also helping us with our reload speed, which is just chilling reload, honestly, 9 times out of 10 is just going to be better than frigid blast because of the minute-to-minute DPS on it. And then, of course, shell shock. Here you can see this is providing us with a bunch of multi-shot and status chance, because I'm sure most of you don't have a Riven. Other options are just other general options. You could go with a Bane mod. What are they called? Yes, you could go with a cleanse mod in here instead. Technically, you could throw a cleanse mod over primed point blank because Blaze is already giving us base damage anyway. Along with, of course, Deadhead giving us base damage. You could throw Galvanized Savvy on there. That'll get your status chance up. You could even just replace it with... You could even just replace it with Scattering Inferno or Frigid Blast. Those are other options. There isn't any good way to get multi-shot on this, of course. So that's kind of the biggest contributor to damage that it's doing here. You can see without this on, we have a multi-shot of 2, and with it on, we have one of 3.1, so that's going to be a pretty, a whole extra bullet is going to be a pretty massive damage boost, let alone when we hit that 10% of a 4th bullet. So you could throw on, like, Hunter Munitions if you wanted an extra proc to come out of your crits. You could play around with other mods. Lots of options. Test around with it, see what you like best, or throw on your own Riven if you have one. Obviously, acceleration is just here to be acceleration. It's just generally the best option for an Exilus slot here. You could also go... This is giving me minus recoil. You could also, if you don't care about acceleration, which is understandable, I don't always care about acceleration, you could throw counterbalance on here. Now, Deadhead, probably the biggest question mark here. So, normally, I'm not a headshot guy. I don't like having to go out of my way for headshots, and so I am the biggest proponent of builds that you can body shot with. In this instance, I think that this is really fun because the minus weapon recoil here and the minus weapon recoil here kind of make this into a laser beam, and I think it's so fun to have the recoil be so minimal. Also, just technically comparing Deadhead to Merciless, it's more damage in the long run, because of how the stuff works out. But of course, if you want to look at this, Merciless, entirely a good option, especially if you feel like the reload speed is still cumbersome. This is going to help a lot. Also, I'd like to mention Crux. Crux is excellent and amazing. You still have to go for headshots, but this is headshot kills. This is just headshots, and so this is a lot easier to stack and get up to max stacks, and then you have bonkers status chance, bonkers ammo efficiency, and it's just a fun time. If you're a little crazy, if you're a little crazy, you could go with Shotgun Vendetta to get more multi-shot and reload speed. That is an option you can do. I just think it's a little crazy because you have to be within 5 meters, and I am horrible at judging distance. So, use at your own cost, I suppose. But I will be running Deadhead. So now, I'll go over the Panzer because it's easily the worst part of the build. This is just kind of a slap everything on that might look appealing. Resourceful Retriever, I feel like, is, you know, everybody wants to run this, not only because it's more resources, but also because, in this instance, it's a little in character, because, you know, Rarity seeks out the gems. This gives you more gems, as if you had sought them out. See where I'm going? Very similarly, I feel a similar way about Animal Instinct, but of course Animal Instinct is just a generically good mod that people like to have on here. I often don't run it. I would generally run something else, but it's like a good mod, it's whatever. Fetch, because of course. Viral Quills, and De-Evolution, because of course that's what we have the Panzer here for. We have Link Fiber just as a filler slot if you wanted to forma your Vulpaphyla. This is just a slot-in mod. If you wanted to forma more and get more specific with this, probably slot in another bond like Contagious or Tenacious or Tandem. That's great. We aren't running Tenacious because I don't have Bite. If you have Bite, just bite the bullet forma another time, like a dash here on Animal Instinct Naramon, and, oh, that's not good. Well, we'll keep on keeping on, I guess. And then slap Tenacious Bond over Link Fiber, because it's just better. But yeah, Link Fiber is just a filler mod. Calculated Redirection is here so that we can get Reinforced Bond to get even more fire rate on all of our things, and it's really wonderful. Also, 150 overshields to your companion. It's not going to be super noticeable. The Vulpaphyla is going to go down when the Vulpaphyla goes down. Sharpen Claws just to get that armor sunder. I tend to find that it's actually pretty helpful every once in a while. And then, of course, Mystic Bond. Mystic Bond just helps us a bit with our energy efficiency, which, because Citrine is a caster, we're going to really want that energy efficiency to be really solid. When it comes to Claws, I'm not kidding when I said I didn't have a Bite. I just literally throw on just whatever you have. I'm sure that there is a better way to maximize your companions. I don't care. So yeah, that's that. So now onto the main attraction, Citrine. So, you may notice the dreaded primed sure-footed. Understand, I'm not normally a primed sure-footed guy. I use it here because the blast from the Astilla, will occasionally knock you down, and I think that's really irritating because it's a shotgun, and so that's why it's here. But it's obviously just a normal, good survivability mod. If you don't want to use it or you don't have it, Power Drift. You retain some of that chance to resist knockdown, but you get 15% ability strength. It's great. The rest of this is a generic kind of recrystallize setup. So I'm going to kind of break this down into 3 categories. 1, how are we surviving? 2, how is Citrine helping us in a unique Citrine kind of way? And 3, just like energy economy and other notes. So, how do we live? Well, Constitution helps whenever we do get knocked down. Prime Sure-Footed helps us to resist knockdown. Augur Message is like sort of giving us some shield gating. Like, not really, but like, you know, it is giving us shields. It is, I feel, worth mentioning. Arcane Blessing is giving us a massive health pool over the course of a mission. And then lastly, we have Adaptation, giving us a lot of damage resistance. This damage resistance is important because it stacks on top of Preserving Shell. Preserving Shell is 79% damage reduction out of gate, but you get a few kills, it'll shoot up to 90%, and you'll be 90% here, about 30% here. Your shields innately have 50% DR, and then when you do finally hit your health, you'll have another 46 DR armor. It all stacks. It all stacks. It all means that you live pretty okay, and this is health tanking if you didn't put it together. Citrine's passive lets us boost our health regen into the stratosphere. And that's really great because we're already wanting to pick up health orbs, not only because of Blessing, but because of her passive, and we're getting a lot of health orbs from Fractured Blast. Pretty much guaranteed 1 drop per enemy afflicted with slash from Fractured Blast. And so, that leads us neatly into how do we deal damage. Obviously, Recrystallize is the big one, but to be honest, I don't usually find myself using Recrystallize unless I'm getting into a more serious situation in a mission. Normally, you throw down Prismatic Gem. Prismatic Gem deals okay enough damage. It'll kill targets at low levels, and it'll do good damage into mid levels. And at high levels, the damage isn't noticeable, but it primes targets with all 4 of the basic elements. Most notably, because we are getting fire from it, and we're using Archon Continuity to duplicate those toxin into corrosive, that means we're sapping enemy armor, especially with corrosive projection, to the point where it is nearly non-existent, if not non-existent, depending on other teammates, whether your Kavat or your Vulpaphyla has used Sunder, all of that stuff. Not to mention Fractured Blast is also doing a little DPS. It's not like a lot, but it is slash procs that are affecting the enemy still. But of course, the big one, Crystallize. Juicy 300% crit chance. It is just, you hit into the crystal and it's a sea of red on your screen. And it's great and wonderful, and I love it. There's a bit of tension here with this and Deadhead, because Deadhead, I believe, doesn't count shooting the crystals for its stacks, and so there is like tension there to be aware of. But you know, it's fine. It's fine for 90% of content. So now, to kind of like finish up talking about the build when it comes to energy economy, of course, Fractured Blast is going to be giving us health orbs and energy orbs, and so we're using Equilibrium to help us get more energy out of those health orbs, and we're using Arcane Energize to just boost that up even more so that we don't have to worry about the negative efficiency from Blind Rage. All of the duration that I'm running is just kind of comfort. It means that this has a 50-second duration, which is comfortable. This has a 16-second duration, which is refreshed by, shooting at it, and then it spreads to other enemies. Prismatic Gem has a 60-second duration. All of that goodness. Notably, I forgot to mention, but Archon Stretch, because we have an ability that deals electricity. Archon Stretch procs. We get energy restored over time every once in a while. It's just extra goodness layered on top. So if you feel better about managing your timers here, then you can squeeze a lot more strength out of the build, quite literally, by like running Augur Secrets over Augur Message, running Intensify any of the 4 varieties over Augur Message or Constitution for that matter. Even a Mars Hatred might be something you're interested in if you want to make use of the teleportation. All of that is, stuff you can consider. Personally, I like the duration the way that it is. It's really comfortable, and I enjoy using it that way. Definitely don't take off our continuity. We really, really, really want those corrosive statuses. So that's that. Um, Before I forget, Bow Prime, obviously this one, we are using Swordsman Flourish because we don't have armor over 450. That would be kind of irritating to try and build for. So we don't use it. It's whatever. You can, if you really want the combo count chance while blocking in the parry angle, I know that there's some spaghetti code with parrying. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to leave a comment about, look into it. But Swordsman Flourish is just wonderful and fine and great. Here, we're using Orc and Reach for Reach. This is kind of a two-taste thing. If you don't think you're going to be using the bow at all and you want to use it as just a stat stick, then 20% movement speed is perfectly fine. And lastly, Flashing Bleed to make the bow prime do basically any damage. None of the rest of these even come close to Flashing Bleed, and it's, we're running 4 elements on this, and so every 90% of the time when you hit a guy, it's going to roll an element. 1/4 of that time it's going to be an impact, and then around half of the time there, from this 40% to be specific, you're going to get a slash out of that. That sounds like a lot of dice you gotta roll to hit a slash proc, but trust me, it happens more often than you'd think from me saying it like that. So, and it also isn't quite a 1 in 4, it's closer to a 1 in 3, considering how low Puncture's weighting is. So, that's the evolutions here. Archon Shards. Parkour Velocity, that's to taste. I'm a Brozim fan. Brozim put a Parkour Velocity on his Mesa, and I started trying it. I have never gone back. It makes movement so smooth, so unbelievably smooth. Casting speed, this one is to taste, although I will say you desperately, desperately, desperately want casting speed on Citrine. Throwing out the Prismatic Gem takes a long time. Also, using Crystallize takes a long time. Even Fractured Blast isn't like a long casting animation, but just having a little casting speed makes it feel a lot more like you're chucking the gems instead of doing this big arm sweep like you're trying to be Gara, right? Now, you might look at the remaining shard colors and get a little skeeved out. This is where it is important to talk about what I meant when I said the build was a little different. So, I will shoot us on back over to Chrome, where you can see these are what I would consider slightly more maxed out builds on the overframe, because there's just some differences here that I think are valuable. Things like using Weeping Wounds and Blood Rush. Gladiator Steel, Gladiator Might would result in more endgame damage. So I say maxed out. I do think that this is perhaps a bit more endgame minded because of the way Blood Rush works and Gladiator Vice works compared to Galvanized Steel. So, but that's all assuming you're using the bow at all. Point being, here's this kind of alternative build if you have these mods and you want to try that out instead. Aksomati build, if you want to look into that yourself. And the Astilla build, where, again, there's some things changed because of the Riven. Changed some things here. I think, Prime Convulsion is here because I could throw on an extra Forma without having to grind it, and obviously Target Cracker and Pistol Gambit are upgraded to their forms, etc., ad nauseum. Here in the Citrine build, you'll notice that it's pretty much the same. I have Archon Flow here. I think I was running this because I preferred to have more energy from like Energize and other things, and you'll notice I'm not running Equilibrium here. However, you'll notice down here, the normal casting speed and parkour velocity I just talked to, 2 Tau Red ability strength, which I don't think it factors in, I'm not 100% sure, and an Equilibrium Shard. So, that's what I used to have. Since making this, I have, my Citrine playtime has fallen off a bit of a cliff. Here, let's shoot this back so you can see Warframe. My Citrine playtime has fallen off a cliff, because I just got kind of tired of playing her for testing out this build and swapping things around, so I took off the purple and the red shards. They are replaced. I made the adjustments in the build, as you have seen, to kind of, and the extra 30% strength is nice because, like, it guarantees that your 100% health orb drop, it gives you more energy orbs, it guarantees, I believe, that this starts out at 90 DR, and, it's good. It's good. Having the extra 30% strength is good. That's fine. It's whatever. Archon Flow versus Archon Stretch. I think Archon Stretch is probably better, but it's a two-taste kind of thing, and Archon Flow obviously works also. But here, we have Energy Max. I mean, you can see I still want Energy Max, obviously, if I'm putting 2 Energy Max shards and I used to have Primed Flow. Energy Max is just good because, I mean, this takes 155 energy to cast, and with the Energy Max shards, we can cast it twice, usually, without much stress. Same thing for these, where, like, we can just cast Prismatic Gem twice if we need to, but you can pop Preserving Shell on and off if you need to. Fractured Blast is a little easier to use. That's kind of why you want the Energy Max. Not necessarily for super energy economy things, but because, we're using so much energy to cast our abilities. Lastly, we have 1 health per enemy killed with blast damage. This is kind of a meme thing. Again, a Equilibrium Shard, even just 1 Tau Forged one frees up this slot, and then you can slap on Archon Flow or Primed Flow, or just normal flow if you don't have those, and then you have your energy cap done, which then frees up these shards. You kind of see where I'm going, right? It's fine. It's, you could even literally freeze up the slot, is my point. This is just funny because we're doing blast damage on this, and so, if I remember correctly, unless it's a simulacrum bug or it's been changed since I tested it, this works with the Astilla's blast, where sometimes an enemy dies from blast damage, you get the kill count for that, and you get a max health. And it's just goofy. It just means that you can get, 300 and then whatever blessing is, I don't remember off the top of my head, on top of your 500 health already as Citrine. And so that's like, just really solid health pool that's like really a ridiculous number to look at. And so with all that, last but not least, I will click on solo. We will make sure we're in Steel Path. First, I'll cut out all this, but I'm gonna head to the simulacrum. Okay, here we are in the simulacrum. You can see we have Steel Path turned on. We have AI pause just for ease. We are going to simulate. So, you always kind of want to start with that. You throw out a Fractured Blast, you start shooting guys. It's going to take a bit because we don't have any of our stacks built up, but kill one guy, kill another guy, Now we could do this. We can do this. We could do this. And you can see how the build works now. So yeah, that's the Astilla. I'll go ahead and reload here and show off the Aksomati. Got some help from the companion there, but you can see it's doing pretty okay without Crystallize. With Crystallize, we just are melting through HP bars. Show off the bow here a little. Again, this isn't like peak performance because we don't have influence, but you know, that kind of shows you what to expect in terms of damage. Now, onto the test. So, what I like to do, I know Brozime, everybody does their own tests to show off their builds. Some people go Void Cascade, some people like to run Mott into the endless hours. Some people like to do other various things. I've seen a couple of people who will hop in ESO for a bit. Not that that's like a super crazy test, but it's a thing. And of course, Brozime likes to go to Tav, which you didn't know is a Cougar survival. Not only do I not have Tav unlocked, but I prefer to use Koro as my standard. The reason for this, sure, fuck it, we'll do a Requiem. We'll do a Requiem for the boys. The reason for this is because survival is great and all, but survival tends to show off a game mode where you can sit in one place and you sit in one place, enemies come to you, you kill all of the enemies, and you just have this massive enemy density that you're working with, which for somebody like Citrine is fairly valuable. You'll notice I might go down here. Citrine is always really hard for me to get back into the swing of things, just because of how Citrine functions. We're going to rely on our cat here a little for some armor stripping. We will go ahead and rush over here. I didn't get the thing. I'm going to go get the thing. Yep, okay. I guess I got the thing. Point being that this kind of, I feel like, reflects a more all-around kind of approach. Because here we don't get the enemy density that you would get off of a survival, but we still have to sit and kind of like stay at a target in one spot and make sure we're crowd controlling enemies enough. And, all of that. Oh boy, now my Kuvalich is here. That'll happen when you are bad at the game. Anyway, my point earlier about not being able to get into Citrine. When I say that I die because I'm bad at the game, I do mean that. I don't want it to be a reflection on the build quality, because, genuinely, if this wasn't a Void Fissure, I don't know that I would go down there. But I'm not gonna, say that because I want you to be able to run this in a Void Fissure, so I don't want that to be like a point. But Citrine is a very interesting and difficult frame to play at high levels, because you have to stay on top of your energy. Like, right now I'm capped on energy. If I cast Crystallize once, that's not the case anymore, right? And so you kind of have to stay on top of your energy. You have to figure out where the hell the entrance is. Thank you. Hopefully this is it. This doesn't look like it's it, gang. Where do I go, gang? Down? Do I go down? No, I don't go down. God, I hate these maps. I may have to cut this out, but I'm going to keep yapping for the time being. You have to stay on top of your energy supply. It can be a little difficult sometimes in the start of a mission because you're just starting the mission and you need to slap Fractured Blast on some guys to get them coated in slash procs so that they'll drop all of the things you need, all of the orbs to get your energy up. And that combined with guns that don't burst kill something immediately is a recipe for dying every once in a while. It just takes a little bit of effort, and it takes a little bit of mindedness for me specifically to play Citrine in such a way where I'm not guaranteed to die 3 minutes into a mission. But that's not going to be everyone, especially if you're a big Citrine enjoyer. And so, you know, take that into consideration. Going into operator to hack because I don't want to die, of course, but also because it's just less annoying. Going to turn this on so I don't die again, and because I have the energy for it. You'll notice my adaptation is 90% on slash right now because I have a slash proc on me. Oh wow, what interesting spawns for the telemetry keys. I've never had them just kind of... Oh no, we do this, and then you do this, and then the mission goes by a bit quicker. Okay, come on, there we go.
Good. One more to go.
So here, I will try to show this off. You can see we just destroyed his overguard. And, you know, he followed suit. A little bit of troubles getting through enemies, but the point is to get the overguard, help you live a little. And, yeah. Vixen is down. Vixen is recovered. Oh, I dropped the telemetry key. I wasn't even paying attention.
That's it. We have triangulation. Protect the console while I reprogram the cannon's telemetry.
Ah, that's an Eximus. That's why. Oh boy, an Acolyte. Ah, where are they at? There they at. Okay, turn this back on. We will... Let's go ahead and do this. Where'd they go? There? Oh, there. So yeah, you can see we handled that Acolyte pretty alright. You can see, guys... Oh my god, that Dargon has a crystal on it. That's crazy. I've never seen that happen. I didn't know that could happen. We need to fire the cannon. You can see we handled the Acolyte pretty alright there. Mostly due to... I'm sure our Kavat... sundering health there... sundering armor there to keep him... unprotected.
Direct hit. The galleon has been
and so,
now return to the telemetry system
you know,
and make sure
the build just kind of works alright. I'm not going to call it a super meta build, but it's Rarity. And honestly, if you want to play Rarity, I don't think you can get much better than this. I also, you know, before anybody comments about it, I know I'm hitting a very niche market of My Little Pony and Warframe fans, but I like the series. If you haven't watched My Little Pony, I think that it's worth, if you have a friend who's really into it, it's worth watching it with, like, a friend who can be like, we shouldn't watch this episode, or, like, you shouldn't take this character moment too seriously. Um, it's a solid, it's a fun series, it's good, it's chill. Good for eating dinner, too. uh, yeah, that's gonna be about the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. Hope to see you back sometime. See you later.